about the program. You can always email me. That's just the first two letters of my first name, crarthur@vt.edu. Or we also have a email address for the program, vtditc@gmail.com. And we also have an Instagram account. That's probably the best way to find out what's going on, like current happenings in the program at VTDITC. And we have a Facebook account too. Not very effective for reaching undergraduate students for sure, but it is good for reaching other folks, the olds, I guess. Yeah. It's funny. I was talking to an undergrad the other day, and he's like, "Yeah, I got a Facebook account, but I only really use it to communicate with my aunts and uncles." So, okay. But yeah, so that's the best way to kind of reach us. But Dr. Alston, I'm happy to answer any questions you have, and always appreciate the opportunity to work with you. And thanks for the invite.
Thank you for agreeing to do this. Yeah, and I know it's going to be very helpful for my students to see this and therefore get into some out of the box thinking. But very quickly, I do want to say, yeah. I mean, it's funny how quickly we get old because I remember being in a Facebook group called "Too Damn Old for Facebook," and now, and now it is the tool for older people. So,
Right,
you know,
right.
just how it goes. Okay, the first question I want to ask you is, all right, so how do you even make the case? It seems like a lot of even though you're a librarian for Virginia Tech, it seems like a lot of the work that you do is beyond the brick and mortar of the library, and you go out and you do outreach, and you don't. I would say that a lot of the work that you put in on behalf of the university doesn't go back directly into the university's enrolled students. Like you're going to Buchanan County of all places, and you're going you're just out there, and so I'm wondering how you make the case to do all this work and be this visible, as opposed to, I don't know, the library just saying, well, we need you on site to do this, this, that, and the other. So how do you even make the case for all this work that you do?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's something that's kind of changed over time. But I think the fact that Virginia Tech is a public land grant, and we have our obligation to serve not just students and faculty and staff of Virginia Tech, but the entire, everybody in Virginia, which, even I've seen in strategic planning documents by the university to say we're a global land grant. So, serving the millions of people in Virginia apparently isn't enough. Now we need to serve all 7 billion people in the world. Right? But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it, just tying the work that we do to the identity of who Virginia Tech says it is. That motto, "Ut Prosim," that I may serve, super important. Strategic plans change, but when you have a university motto, I mean, that's who we say we are, right? So just trying to communicate that, library work doesn't start or end at the door, at the threshold of the library, and initially, my supervisor was like, "Yeah, you could kind of maybe repackage this as like pre-matriculation work, right? Like the idea is we're trying to reach folks in hopes of them becoming Virginia Tech students." Fair, but also I personally think there's a value beyond just that. It's not just recruitment. It's not just trying to, because college isn't for everybody, and Virginia Tech definitely isn't for everybody, right? Instead, we need to focus on that land grant, as flawed as that was, that land grant mission, and also our identity as being essentially a service organization for the state of Virginia. So one of the reasons I got into librarianship is it's all about sharing. If you think about it, it's kind of, librarianship is really counter to a lot of our other cultural values, and I'm really thankful I have the opportunity to do that type of work in this role. I've had other library jobs where, like you were saying, like it is about being at your desk, being present. But thankfully, it hasn't been easy, but thankfully through, I guess, by really putting the numbers on the board, we've been able to communicate the value of really going beyond just our traditional outreach to kind of expand that out.
All right, excellent. And second question that I have for you is, As far as if you can elaborate a little more, as far as budget, how you make this work with the budget, do you have to petition for funds? Do you have to write grants? How is all of this working out?
Yeah, a lot of it honestly is internal grants. So basically, at a university the size of Virginia Tech, I think our operating budget for next year is something like $1.75 billion, which is a number that's even just I can't even get my head around, But there are a lot of little, and by little I don't mean dismissively, but just comparatively small pots of money available, that you have to apply for, or build relationships with different departments. But a few $1,000s here, a few $1,000s there, kind of compile a budget. We do have a small operating budget for the community engagement department, and that's thankfully increased over time because we've, shown that we can do a lot with not much. And then if you give us a little bit more, we can do even more. So, um, but it's been a work in progress, man. Yeah, it's interesting. Virginia Tech has again plenty money, but it's like figuring out how to navigate and figure out the secret passwords to get a little bit at a time. But yeah, basically one of the strengths of the program is our co-sponsorship model. So we don't ask uh, student awards to contribute financially. Instead, we're asking for them to contribute sweat equity, being good partners and promoting events and helping out with programs, and hopefully employ some of those students, student leaders in the program. But campus partners, if you wanna be listed on the flyer, then you got to contribute. So figuring out how to make that legible and equitable is super important, and also not something that's a lot of times cut and dry. You got to learn by doing. So that's been a key to our success, is the fact that I pretty much every year, I think last year might have been the one outlier just because budgets were so weird, but pretty much every year, more than 50% of the program's operating budget has come from beyond the library. So that's unique, and I think it helps make the case that other people see value in what we're doing to the library as well.
Excellent. And would you happen to have any advice? Like, let's say that my students are inspired and so they want to try to score outreach librarian jobs that will allow them to do some things that are out of the box a little bit. Do you have any advice for my students as far as A, trying to even land a job like that, but then B, trying to actually mold that position into, just getting the most mileage and making it, the most tailored to them as they possibly can?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's super important to make sure when you're doing outreach and engagement work that you might have your personal interest in things you're passionate about, but you need to make sure that you're communicating that this is actually a community a community interest and a need that's been communicated, right, and expressed. And that's my first thing. Is I think libraries writ large have a long history of thinking we know better than the communities we serve. You know, so yeah, making sure that once you do get that role, that everything you do is informed by the actual needs of the communities. The best way to do that is ask folks. We're hoping to, the pandemic's made it a little bit tough, but we're hoping this year to restart